Hello again and a very warm welcome to Sweet Omagh Internet Radio. As I look to the right, I see my co-presenter, Declan Ford. Anyway, how are you today, Mr. Ford?
It's been pretty well. It's been pretty rather inclement weather. But I'll put up with it. It's like a lot of things, you just have to put up with it and get on with it, But and yourself, I take it you're hale and hearty.
I still am keeping well, as I say. As
excellent
as it can be. But I'm almost wondering if someone just woke up today, had fallen asleep sometime maybe the end of February, early in March. What sort of changes would the sea around here? Can you imagine?
If you were like Rip Van Winkle.
Yes.
What changes would you see? Would you know what? You would see a lot less people. You would see a lot of sale signs in shops. You would see people going around, when you think of it, like masks on their faces and looking as though they're kind of terrified of walking.
A different world, isn't it? If you think of it seriously, but you mean there's no Disneyland, no Paris, no people about, no Mecca, no anything. And no hugs or kisses from your family or loved ones. What a strange way to live here.
Well, who would have thought it? If we could kind of turn the clock back to say last December, who would have thought that the world would have changed so much, or our world would have changed so much?
Yes, and all the power and money and all ain't worth a fiddlers, is it?
It's not worth it, And the strange thing I have noticed, the number of people who are saying, I wasn't well in November and December, I think I got the COVID.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
So many people have said that, and it is quite possible. Nothing would surprise me, I can tell you the truth now. No. What surprises me is that the world's gone on ahead. The world itself is healing without us. And I suppose that makes me think, what we are only guests here, really.
Well, my old friend, the little Owen Smith, used to talk about his lovely cottage up outside Omagh. And he said, Ford, he says, I am just a custodian. I am a custodian. I am here to look after it for my time. And I thought that was a very, very wise, it's almost like a Native American Indian, that you don't own the ground. You look after it and you cherish it and you nurture it, And I think, like yourself, I would agree, this pandemic has made us realise, really, in the scheme of things, we are relatively minute.
We are.
And we just have to get on with it.
When I was reading some of Dorothy Rowe, the writer's works over the weekend there, and the name Dorothy brought back up the film The Wizard of Oz, and I wonder, are we on the yellow brick road looking for the wizard somewhere to cure all our ills,
Well, no, I think we would fit in more with the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow. Each one looking for something.
But that's exactly it. We're all looking for something, aren't we?
If I only had a heart, if I only had a brain, if I only had courage. And I love the line in it, where the Cowardly Lion goes, put him up, and he's going to fight. And he reminded me of youngsters at school, when you're in primary school. And then,
yes.
Did you ever witness a fight in primary school?
Not only did I witness it, I was there.
You were that fight. Mm-hmm. But, the way, the sort of the dance that would go on, you have the two fellas skirting round each other and the nudge with the shoulder and did you push me? I did not. What do you mean by that? And then when it eventually comes down to the fisticuffs, it's the hold me back, and hoping on that there's somebody there to hold him back. Or
yes.
give me, take my coat off and get into the fight. And oh, Lord save us. It was like some of those, remember the Walt Disney nature study, wee short films you used to see, and that's what it was like. It was like a dance. It was like animals, birds mating.
Yes.
Skirting and dancing around each other,
Yeah.
And it was like this for years and years. Each generation, I think has it,
Yeah.
But it'll get, like you said about COVID, it just goes on. It goes on. I mean, I was listening to a young fellow who'd been accepted for Oxford whinging about he's not going to have the experience that he should have, and you felt like screaming at the television, you're not the only one in the world who's not going to experience this,
No.
It sort of brings out this sort of selfishness in a lot of people too, why me, Lord?
But I'm still optimistic that it will herald a new change for us. Mm-hmm. A new value structure possibly, and let's hope that all comes out of this.
I would fully agree.
Yeah.
Cardinal Newman said change is good, And he was right. And we, like things need to change. Like our values are somewhat skewed.
Yes, I know.
We're influenced by maybe too much reality TV.
Yes, I know what you mean. I mean, when you hear people like the leader of the free world saying teachers should be armed in schools, where do you go with that? You go back to school to some of the Christian brothers that taught you sitting with an AK-47. Forward! Where's your homework?
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, I know. But we are blessed in this country. I think, we have our ills. But Lord save us when you see what is going on, as you say, rather sarcastically, in the free world.
Yes.
We are free.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But anyway, we have our own joys here.
Yes, and we have work to do tonight.
Oh, we have indeed.
Some time ago, or fairly recently, we interviewed a great lady, Mary Campbell.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember Mary? I'm sure you do, because it wasn't that long ago.
She is something else.
Lovely lady. And her world, while it to many it may seem basic or simple, it's anything but that, because she had a very colourful, very full life. Mm-hmm. Maybe short, maybe on material things, but certainly rich in love and family.
Oh, yeah. And you know what really struck me, and I've met Mary a number of times over the years, her prodigious memory and her love of the recitations that we have here in Tyrone, the works of the late Philly Kearney. And she has a remarkable memory.
I love the way she could just break into song or poems. Just to say, oh, here's a poem for you, here's a song for you. With no stress, no what about this, or no encouragement. She just sat back and recited and sang to her heart's content. Mm.
And I think she is the epitome of all that is good about this place, in that sense, with the arts and with recitations and songs and poetry, that it's as natural as breathing to her.
Yes.
Where she, as you said, she can just dip in and out.
Yeah.
And there's no angst or preparation, and it's just part and parcel of everyday conversation.
And her enthusiasm is infectious.
And you just, like the interview that we did, it was an entertainment from start to finish. And I think she's marvellous.
Yeah.
I had a ball.
So unassuming, and she says, what would you want to talk to someone like me for? I said, well, sure, why not, And she has so much to say because she's seen so many changes, Declan.
Oh, yeah.
In her life.
And she talked about the changes in Omagh, and in particular she referenced the major changes of the National Health Service and how that radically changed a way of life.
Yes.
But talking about her early days of leaving school so young, which many youngsters did, to go straight into the world of work. And it's certainly a different mindset and a different way of life from youngsters who are young teenagers today.
Yes. And she's one of the few people who doesn't stress about COVID, really. Doesn't really take, she gets on with it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Wears a wee mask and comes in here and talks to us just like any other day.
She takes all that in her stride, and it's a lesson, I think, for us all. You can get uptight about events that you can't change or things you can't change. And if you let it take over you, you're hiding to nothing.
No.
And I think Mary's attitude is so wise. Just take each day as it comes, and just do the best you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lesson for us all.
So, I'm off to see The Wizard. Where are you going today?
I'm going to the wonderful world of Oz.
Great film, wasn't it, though?
It was powerful, you know. But I was terrified. I remember watching it. I knew those flying monkeys that terrified the life out of me. And the Munchkins, and all kinds of stories have grown up about the Munchkins. They were drunk on set and they were very wild. And I think they've now become kind of legends rather than the truth. But I remember the Wicked Witch of the West terrified the life out of me.
Yeah.
But did you know, in reality, the actress who played the Wicked Witch actually took Judy Garland, who was only a teenager, under her wing and looked after her. And they developed a very close friendship, and that was the beginning of, I think, Judy Garland's life unravelling you know, where she was just a prisoner of the studio.
Yes.
She was something. She was a great performer.
Wonderful, right enough. Anyway, till we meet again, Mr. Ford, we shall enjoy an hour or so in the company of Mary Campbell. Take care. Bye-bye. Where did life start for you, Mary?
In Fermanagh. I was born in the townland of Ballydoolagh on the 30th of April 1930. And my father worked with a man called James Campbell. He had a farm and a shop. And at that time there was a lot of manual work. There was horses, and the hay was cut with a mower, and it was shook with a horse and a shaker, and druin and rocks, and it was put in the haggard with a big sheet. And then in the winter time, the working men made whops of hay to have it handy to throw it to the cows. This was the job on a wet day. Well, I can remember running down the garden path to meet my mother's aunt. She was coming from near Omagh, out in Tattysallagh, to stay for a while my baby sister was being born. And it was cold, cold weather in the month of March. And they were making a new road round past Mary's shop. And she had the roadmen all in for their tea. And she was a little woman, and she was as thin as a rake. And she had been twice in America. She went over and come back, and she went back again. And she had half-sisters and brothers, and she brought some of them over with her and got them work. And my daddy worked on the farm. He'd be away early in the morning to milk cows, and anything was going, he was at it. And he wouldn't be home till 8 o'clock at night. And that was 7 days a week. He went on Sunday as well. And he was from Cavan, bald boy. And sometimes he would go up on a Sunday on his bicycle to visit his brothers up there. He rode the bike from Ballydoolagh up to Baldboy on a Sunday afternoon and came back again.
And Mary, where exactly is the townland where you were born? Between which towns, or which is the nearest town?
Outside Enniskillen, near Garvery Church. You turn left at Garvery Church to go up to Ballydoolagh. And that's where Mary's shop was, at Ballydoolagh Law.
Ah, right.
We were looking down at it.
Ah, right. Well, can you describe the house that you were born in or that you lived in?
Yeah. It had a slated roof, and it had 2 apartments, a kitchen and a room, and a fireplace in the middle. And there was the crane and crook and the griddle and the kettle. There was no stoves or electricity, but a lamp hung on the wall with a globe on it. There used to be a great crack clearing the globe before night came in the winter time. It was just a wee 2-bedroom house up a lane, very near Ballydoolagh Law, a wee lane up to it. And there was a spring well out in the yard, and that was the water for cooking and washing and so on. It was warmed, and we did the washing with it and did the cooking.
And had the house been in the family for years, or did the parents move to it?
It was what's known then as a Cotter house. And anybody that lived in a Cotter house, they weren't thought very big, you know. Some of the girls would be wondering what kind of a house this boy lived in. Always in a Cotter house. Oh no, I wouldn't do. That's right.
Well, tell me this. I want to hone in on Christmas in the cottage, in the house. Can you remember, were there any kind of special preparations made?
There wasn't many preparations, but we would have always got something for Christmas. I remember one Christmas we had 4 dolls. That old woman, Auntie, she set up 2 dolls from Tyrone, and Mommy had got Santa and brought us 2 dolls. And we would have had a goose. And the people that my father worked for, they would always send a box of stuff, sugar and tea, and a new cap for him, and sweets for us. And that was Christmas. There wasn't very much.
There wasn't the
Chatting.
same fuss that there is today. Of course, there
not
wasn't the money.
at all. There wasn't the money, and there was the holly behind the plates. You know, they had the dresser with the plates. And you'd went out to the holly bush and put a lot of sprigs of holly behind the plates. That was the decoration.
Did people call it Christmas then? Or, I mean, would your father obviously have taken the day off work?
Well, I can't remember much about that, but he'd be up and away in the morning, and we would have had dinner then when he'd come home. The goose and spuds, and it was the only time when we, as we called them then, poundies, mashed spuds. That's the only time we got them at Christmas and Easter. We had to peel them other times.
Well, so, did your father come up from Cavan?
Yeah.
And to marry your mother, or had he come up to work, or what was...
He came up here the time of the hiring fairs, and he was working in McKnight's, I think. And he worked for people named Anderson out in Beara. She was a teacher, Mrs. Anderson. And my mother, her parents died, and she was on her own in a place at home with my uncle, her brother Joe. And she was working in Todd's in Yervahi. I don't know who's in it now, it's out the road past the TLF. And they met at the Leap Bridge. And one of those Midland fellas painted a lovely painting where Tom and Lizzie met. It's lovely. The column has it. I didn't bring it home for the bell fighting about it.
Oh,
And
lovely.
they met there, and the first place they started was in Mayor's. He must have known that they were looking for somebody, and he went to them. And they were very nice people. There was a whole big family of them too.
And did he ever talk about being hired out and what it was like? And did he must have missed home?
Well, he used to go periodically to visit his two brothers. He had two brothers in Brackley, one boy. And he was with these marriages for a while. And then he took a notion he would change, so he came to McKnight's, this boy Derry's. We were there for a while. And we lived in the townland of Killesker. As out the road between Omagh and Beara.
Right.
And the railway ran along in front of the house. The train.
And I think the Reverend Marshall mentions Killester in one of his poems. That name rings a
Probably
bell.
does.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
And we lived there for a while, but it was very early in the morning. He had to be up early. We were in Beara the time the King and Queen were made, 1937, I think.
Right.
I remember being in Beara, and it was all flags and bunting and so on. And I first went to school at Beara. The priest came out to see, I think I was 6 then, why I wasn't going to school. He came out in his bicycle, I don't remember his name. So I went to school then in Beara, and Mr. and Mrs. Conway were the teachers. It was a husband and wife team. And the chapel bell was in the schoolyard, and I think it's still there.
I was just chatting about the school days, and then you did a year in Beara.
I did a year in Beara, and then we went back to Fermanagh, to Mayor's again, to the same place. And the school there was Ballydoolagh And it was also a husband and wife team, and it was a 2-story house. And I kind of thought that the teachers, they were a husband and wife team too, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, that they lived upstairs and they taught us downstairs, but I wasn't sure about that.
It was probably
I don't know.
a wee girl's imagination, just, you know.
Wasn't sure.
But that seemed to be in a lot of schools, husband and wives, you know,
Aye.
the headmaster and his wife.
The Conways
Same as my
taught
mother.
in Beara, and those were the Brennans, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan. 38 then we came down to Tattysallagh. My father got pains in that, and my mother had the wee farm at home, her and Joe, my uncle. So we flitted down there, and I'm there yet. For how much longer, I don't know.
We'll be there a right while yet.
I don't know.
So what was the school then? Was that Tattysallagh?
Tattysallagh, yeah.
Right. And can you remember the teachers or the...
Mrs. McFarland, you know Eugene McFarland's mother. She was a teacher, and they lived over in Screen, and she came over, she taught, and there was Master McGowan, but he was there for a while, and then he left, and there was a Master McDermott came from Derry. Master McGowan went to Culmore to be principal, and there was a Master McDermott came from Derry, and he was a very nice man. He was good to everybody, and he stayed at Broderick's down the road below McGrane's. He lodged there and walked up and down to the school.
And can you remember any visitations to the school, you know, say for First Holy Communion or Confirmation, where the priest would come to inspect?
There was a time when the ecclesiastical minister came and would build Ireland Catechism and Bible history, the parable of the sower, the parable of the reaper. And we remember going for confirmation, and we went to Donnelly's for tea after. And then we had confirmation, and there was Holy Communions. I made my Holy Communion in Drumragh Chapel, and it was me and Eileen Lahern and Sally Colton and Tommy Colton, and they're all up there now looking down at us, only me.
And you had the white
Yeah,
dress and
I had
all?
a wee white dress, and I had a wreathed veil, and we walked from our house down to Drumragh Chapel, and Mommy put the veil in a paper bag so that it wouldn't get wet or annoyed. But we had no photographs, no tea, no anything like that. But I'll tell you a story about my uncle. They were telling about him. He didn't like going to confession. And my granny, she got him up to the door and she pushed him in and shut the door. And when she came home, she says, "Well, Joe, how did you get on?" "And nothing at all to say, Ma. He knowed it all."
Oh dear.
And that was confirmation. Well, I remember a family at school. There were the McGranes, they'd be cousins of these McGranes and cousins of Jim's and them. And they were over as refugees. The war was on then, and we had a wee Christmas play. Mrs. McFarland got it going, and one of the McGrane boys came in as Santa Claus with a red dressing gown, and he sat on his back. I can still see him. And we were so all mesmerised at this. And they sang this wee song when he came in. "Old Santa Claus, come back, hey ho, a merry old fellow is he, behold. Each year he visits the girls and boys and brings them lots of sweets and toys. When boys and girls are all asleep, then to his work he quietly creeps. He packs their stockings for top to toe, and on his way he quickly goes." What do you think about
That
that?
is lovely. That is lovely. And that is stuck in your head all those years.
My head, all
Well,
those
do you
years.
think is that where your interest in drama and poetry came from those
I
days?
think so.
Uh,
And he had a brother, Thomas. That was John McGrain, did Santa Claus. He had a brother, Thomas. He was there too as a refugee, and they both became priests. Now, Thomas is dead, and I'm not sure about John, whether he's still living or not.
and they had come from Belfast, or were they from England?
Girvan, Scotland.
Girvan.
Ah.
Oh, right. Right.
Uh-huh.
Of course, the bombing would
They
have been
had an
taking
hotel
place.
over
Right.
there.
My
Their
goodness.
people. And there was a couple of girls there too, Laura and Sally, I think, was their name. And they were very nice children. And we met them then at Medjugorje some time ago.
Right.
Uh,
My goodness. All those years later.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, then, what age did you leave school at?
14.
My goodness.
I was 14 in April and I left school in August, the harvest holidays. I didn't go back after that.
So that it was the one school that was.
I just had
Tattysallagh.
one school.
And at
yeah.
14.
And I went to work in Edgar's, a farm. Oh, there was plenty of work. There'd be 2 or 3 women there at night before night looking for you if you were out of a job. Milking cows, feeding hens, doing all the things you do on a farm, looking after children. And I was in, that was Edgar's. I was in 2 families of Edgar's, and then I went to Maguire's. That'd be Seamus. The Maguire children. Seamus was the baby when I went to work there. So, and then I went to town to an old lady called Mrs. Corker. She lived in Campsie, and I think maybe her and her husband, he was dead then, that one time owned the butcher shop, Wilton's butcher shop at one time in Campsie. And I went to work there for a while, and then I went to the Tyrone in Fermanagh. I worked with Dr. Johnson. He was a resident medical superintendent out there, so we worked with him. And coming from a mission one night, I met Jim Campbell. He was on holidays from England. Met him. So it's history after that.
That's right.
There was a mission on in Omagh, and our children used to often say, "Mommy, where did you meet Daddy?" I says, "Coming from a mission." "Oh, mission accomplished," they used to say. So there is history after that. We got married in 1953, and we had 6 boys and 2 girls. And the last girl, she died. And, I have a whole pile of grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I have 3 great-great-grandsons. And they're lovely wee boys.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
3 wee boys.
Well, the wedding itself, did you have a wedding breakfast?
Yes,
And where was that?
and Donnelly's, which was then Donnelly's. It was
That's the Tyrone restaurant, isn't it?
Tyrone Western, I suppose that's what it was. We had a wedding breakfast there. We went to Dublin we were married on Tuesday, went to Dublin to Sunday and come back then. And we were out at the Tyrone Fermanagh for a while. There was a wee room out there that we stayed in. And then we went out to Tattysallagh, lived there for a while. And then we went up to Tattysallagh, where my mum and dad were. And my sister, she got married to a boy over the road, and she moved over there. God rest her, she's dead now. So there was just the 2 of us, just me and Annie. And my mum and dad lived with us, and then they died. And then my mother had an old Aunt Money. Annie called her Minnie Aunt. I think she must have been dyslexic. She used to call blackberries berry blacks. So she was my aunt, and she was an old woman. And no matter who was sick or where they were, she'd be away on the bus to visit them. And she used to come up and visit us at night. She lived down the road a bit too. We were all very near each other.
Mightn't have been to do with being dyslexic. It's more to do with the Irish language. A lot of things in Irish converted back to front.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
My granny would have said the step door rather than the doorstep. Then she's a native.
That was the way.
She's a native Donegal speaker, Irish speaker. So it didn't convert back that way. I suppose in the Irish language. So that could well have been the case. Her first language may have been Irish,
Probably.
Yeah.
and then converted over.
Well then, so you're married and you're settling down, and have you lived in the same house since then, or has the house changed, right, and renovated?
Well, we had those first wee houses. We lived a while at the Tyrone Fermanagh, and then down in Tattysallagh. We came up then, my father and mother. Daddy was old and wasn't able to keep going, so we moved in there.
Yes.
And I'm still there,
Right.
in the same place.
Right. Well, just go back to the TNF. How did you find working in the TNF?
Oh, it was nice.
You liked
I
it?
had a half day on a Thursday and a half day on Sunday. And used to cycle out home, cycle back in again.
Goodness, that was quite a distance.
I had a 22-inch waist then.
Right. Oh, sure, didn't we all?
Some of us still have.
Yeah, some of us still have.
22-inch neck.
More like the bell bottoms.
That's right.
With
That's
the
right.
bottoms, yeah.
22-inch bottom. So now.
Oh God.
Well, then you must have seen a lot of changes. You know, say even going in and out of Omagh. You must have seen a lot of changes in the town.
Aye.
Where would you have shopped if you came into Omagh?
Well, there was Barney Riley's for drapery. He was down at I think it was at the corner of Bridge Street and the main street, somewhere there. And you went to the Royal Arms, my mother used to call it Porter's, for a bowl of soup.
And what about Broderick's? Would you have visited Broderick's Hotel? Or was that, it may even have been closed even then, Broderick's?
No, I never was in that hotel, although many a time she used to want us to go and work for her, but we never went, that lady.
Mm-hmm.
She was McCrossan from Tattysallagh.
Oh, Mrs. Broderick.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She was a sister of Dominic McCrossan's.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I just assumed they were from Cavan. I think that's something in my head that's where they were from. My goodness.
No.
And, well, tell me then, over the years, what about entertainment? Was your house a Cayley house? Or?
Oh, aye.
Right, and who would have called?
My uncle, Willie Quinn, Cassie and Mary Quinn, they were cousins of my mother's. They lived in the cottage down the road. They'd be there. And Joe would have come in, and he was a great singer. And Joe played the fiddle.
Uh-huh.
And we then would have Cayley'd in a house over the road, and the man of the house played the wee button-keyed accordion, and he'd start up music and we'd be all up dancing.
Lovely.
The sets and the lancers,
Uh-huh.
and quick steps. Aye. Plenty of entertainment. And then there was a dance in Clannabogan Hall once a month.
And can you remember who would have played at the dances? Was it local musicians, or would they have had visiting
The Moonlight Dance Band used to be there. They were from Dromore, I think.
Right.
And then we had the Irish class. For this, when we were at school, we had early in the day was for us. Later on was for the older ones. And I remember a girl, Mary McKenna. She would be from Riverstown, which I think the village community have it bought up now. And she used to play the violin for us, dancing. And Philly Kearney would have been about, and Arthur Kearney.
Right.
Arthur wrote me the do-re-mis of a wee tune, and I still can play it. I could play it. If anything was written do-re-mi-fa-sol-la-ti-do,
Yes.
I could play it. But C, D, E, F, G, A, B, I don't know where.
Well, tell me, did Feely Kearney, did he play music as well as write the songs and poems?
Oh, this was his son played the music. Young fella.
Young Feely.
Aye.
Right. And it was older Feely that wrote The
That
Hills
wrote,
Above Glen.
yeah.
Right.
He wrote songs now, but I never heard of him singing
Right.
or playing music. But his sons, Philly and Arthur, were great musicians.
Aye, Arthur was a big burly man. I remember seeing him around the town. He wrote the Centenary March.
That's right. That's right, he did indeed.
And can you remember any of the songs that would have been sung at when there was anybody in Killian? Did they have their kind of party pieces or?
Spring of Irish Heather would have been one. It was by Philly Kearney.
That's right. That's right. It's a lovely wee song.
An Irish mother writing to her son so far away said I meant to send a shamrock to wear on Patrick's Day. But the shamrock is a tender plant, its beauty might be fled. So our sprig of Irish heather I'm sending you instead. Just a sprig of Irish heather that has seen all kinds of weather, withstood the heat of summer and survived the winter snow. I have sent it to remind you of the friends you left behind you in Tyrone among the bushes in the days of long ago. You remember Corradilla and the Bass Rock standing there, where we oft times knelt together, and you lisped your childish prayer. Many times since then I wander back as the evening shadows steal. Sure I plucked this heather from the sod where once you used to kneel. Just a sprig of Irish heather that has seen all kinds of weather, withstood the heat of summer and survived the winter snow. I have sent it to remind you of the friends you left behind you in Tyrone among the bushes in the days of long ago. But the years on me are flitting, and I know I'm growing old, by the fireside sitting lonely when the nights are dark and cold. I know your smile would cheer me and bring sunshine out of gloom, so come back to me, Cushla, when the heather is in bloom.
Well done.
Beautiful.
Lovely version.
Beautiful.
Lovely version.
Beautiful. And you know, in Owen Smith's cottage, there was a man called Pete MacDonald. Pete would have been a kind of a general caretaker up around Cregan. We man just living on his own, and I invited him down to Fermanagh Cottage, and he came, and Owen was there. And what did he present to Owen? Just at the door, it was the sprig of Irish heather. And Owen Smith, if you had given him £1 million, he wouldn't have been happier. He was just, and that song captures that, you know. It's a lovely song.
Isn't
Lovely.
it?
He was a
I
great
feel he
writer.
wrote that now.
He was a great writer.
And they say he left school when he was 7 or 8 years old and went out to work.
But he was a great writer, you know. Well, tell me, can you remember any other poems or songs that would have been party pieces, or that? Can you remember any reciters that would have come, or storytellers? Is there anybody nobody would stand
not so many
out?
storytellers. But will I say Paddy O'Shea for you?
Please do, please do.
'Twas the month of November at the close of the day. It was also the close of the fair in the village of Gortin, and Paddy O'Shea was a little bit worse of the wear. He sold a cow to a man from the Plum, and a horse to a lad in Corley, I'll treat myself now to a wee drop of rum. I deserve it, says Paddy O'Shea. He spat on his stick and begorra, says he, it's time I was home in a slap. It's a tough enough jaunt for an old lad like me. I am lonely go down to the gap. But a drop in me pocket'll not go far wrong to brighten a man on his way. A sup now and then, and a verse of a song is a blessing, says Paddy O'Shea. He plodded along just as blithe as a bee till he came to a seat in the glen. I'll rest and be thankful, says Paddy, says he, for it can't be a lot after 10. When I worked for the council in days that's gone by, I rested here many's a time. He finished his bottle because he was dry, and sleep came to Paddy O'Shea. How long he had slept he never could tell, but he swore that his back got a thump. And a sound in his head like the clang of a bell made him come to himself with a jump. And a lad on the seat showing 2 cloven feet says, you needn't be trying to pray, for your sins of the past I have got ye at last. I have come for ye, Paddy O'Shea. Now, says Paddy, me lad, were ye 5 times as bad, I would warn ye now to take heed. I don't care for you, or the worst ye can do. I'm married to one of your breed. I tamed her, me dad. I mad she was bad. A daughter of yours would say. But I don't give a curse. You can't be no worse than your daughter, says Paddy O'Shea. The old boy jumped up in a terrible rage, and he gripped Paddy hard by the beard. Says he, I've had slurs, but I'll swear on my age, this is the worst I have heard. Now, Paddy by this time was quite wide awake, and saw it was just bracken day. Ach, the devil, says he, I have made a mistake. It's the daughter, says Paddy O'Shea. For Paddy's old woman, she sat up all night till her temper was boiling, and then, with a stick in her hand, at the screak of daylight, she wended her way down the glen. She, ye old blackguard, if ever ye cheap from this to your dying day, I'll make ye pay for the things that ye said in your sleep. Bad cess to ye, Paddy O'Shea.
Well done, lovely.
I went down to Campsie to work with this lady, Mrs. Corker in Omagh, and she had 2, as she called them, paying guests. So I did the cooking and cleaning and all that. Mrs. Corker was very old herself, and she used to go to church on a Sunday, and I would have went up to Mass up in the Sacred Heart, and then I went out to work in Dr. Johnson's at the Tattysallagh Omagh Hospital. He was the resident medical superintendent out there, and his wife, and he had 1 boy, 1 son. So it was a great big house, and there was plenty of work to do, cleaning upstairs and downstairs. And we had a half day on a Thursday when I cycled home and back at night, and the same on Sunday. So they were very nice people. Anybody that houses that I worked in, they were very good. You were well fed and well looked after, and I have no complaints in that respect at all.
Well, then, in the house you were living in, but were you expected to be on call?
Yeah, I lived in, and I had £2 a week, and my keep was fed and watered in a bed and all that.
And did you have set hours, or were you just expected to?
Oh,
when
you were
there,
just
you worked?
expected to get up. Up in the morning and get the breakfast ready and so on. And then the last thing at night was to wash the dishes and after the supper. And then you had a while to sit and read or knit or whatever.
But would that be up in your room, or could you?
No, down in the kitchen.
In the kitchen?
No, I would stay in the kitchen. And there never was much going on. Johnson's was a quiet household. he would have been away every day at the hospital. And Mrs. Johnson, I think she was a domestic economy teacher, but she was retired then. She hadn't taught. She had the wee boy, Ross.
And were you expected then, say, to answer the phone if anybody, did they have a phone?
Aye.
And you would have
They
to
had
take
a phone.
messages?
I would answer the phone.
And then, did you have to do the shopping during the week for the family as well?
No, they did the shopping. No, I didn't have any of that to do. And then I got married out of there, and my own hook, and Jim was working in Aikens, and he didn't have a wild pile of money, and it wasn't very well paid. But he seemed to enjoy it, and the crack was good. He would always told you about what fun they had at home with Billy Davison and all those. Alec Donnelly was there as well.
Is that where he learned to trade then as a mechanic, or did he train anywhere else? Or did he?
No, that was where he started there when he came from England. And they used to work at lorries, and he would be in late at night. Well, there would be good pay that time. But he smoked, which took a right bit of money.
Right. What did he smoke?
Fags.
Fags, but can you remember? Was it senior service?
Green, Gallagher Greens.
The exact same as my father. Gallagher Greens, and then eventually we got him on to tipped cigarettes, but he still smoked the Gallagher Greens.
Well, many a time Jim tried to stop, but he couldn't. And then he started the pipe. He smoked it for a while, tobacco, and after a while he got off the pipe as well. He used to eat yesteryear mints. And he died at 63 with a heart attack. I suppose he didn't stop smoking soon enough.
And was he still working at that stage? Did he work right up until he was?
No, he was retired. Just the way he was retired at 60. He moved from Aikens, and he went to the Crown Buildings for a while. They had security men there, so he did that for a while. I think he would have been at that when he died. That was an easy job, but you had to be there at night. But then he could sleep in the daytime, and he enjoyed it. And it was a wee bit better pay than Aikens.
Well, did he drive himself then? Had he a car or? Right.
I had a car. He used to have a motorbike at the time. He went on to Aikens on it. And then we got a car. I can't remember what the first car was. But the last car we had was a Peugeot. And I used to drive a bit. In your courting days, you'd be allowed to drive. Then when you get married, you break in the yard. I think he comes back the night, he'd more than me. And I used to drive around the street in this Peugeot thing, and the boys used to come out with me around the road. I had had a licence from a way back when you got a licence without a test. And I never had a test. And I sent away the other day for a new licence.
Quite right too. You're not afraid of work anyhow, I'll give you that. Yeah.
No.
But all work and no play.
And even yet, you know, I hear them all, they'll tell the man, go you out and bring in the washing. I would have more asked him to bring in the washing. I don't like myself to do it.
Well, then tell me about your interest in drama, and how did that was that kick started, and then tell me about the clubs you've been involved with.
My uncle would have been in plays. He was in a play. I remember Mary. There's a photograph of him there somewhere, and he got on well in it. He got a couple of cups in it and all that. But I never got into a play. Now, the last play that they did, but just before Tommy died, and I was supposed to walk, and I was supposed to be awake, and I was to come in as one of the people going to the wake. It was a wake in the West, I think was the name of it. But Tommy died, God rest him, and they put the play back then, they didn't do it. because of that. So I never got into the play. But I would have always helped them out and got them clothes or whatever they wanted. And Noel would have been going, and we always sort of had our hand in the same pie sort of thing.
And there's a good tradition of drama in Clonaboghan. You know,
Aye.
it's done a lot of good work.
Very, oh, it was great at one time, and we went away down to where? Was it Clare or somewhere down south for a weekend one time?
Right, to a festival.
And Tom Timoney was there and his wife, and
There
there was quite a few people. It was lovely.
Well, would you go to many plays at all? Would you, if there was anything in the Struil Arts Centre? Yeah, you enjoy a play?
Enjoy a play, surely.
What about the pantos in the 50s and 60s, Mary and Omagh? You know,
They were lovely. I remember Sheila Taggart. Yes, you, I'd like to eat. Sugar bush, you are so sweet. Was that it? Yes, you, I'd like to. Sheila Taggart.
Right.
I think she is dead now.
Right. Oh, for goodness sake.
Oh, I remember the pantos. And another girl, Bready McCaffrey. She used to be in the pantomime. She's dead quite recently.
Was she a singer as well, or was she an actress?
No,
or
I think she was an actress in the pantos.
Well then, Mary, could you tell me a wee bit about the Clonaboghan Drama Circle and the individuals involved? You know, for example, Tommy Mullen, who's a great producer.
Tommy was the producer, and Tommy was a gentleman. He was kind to everybody, and anything anybody did for him, he was always so thankful. The Wake in the West was the last one that was done, and Tommy then, he died, and it wasn't put on at that time. So they had another one coming up, and then this COVID came in and stopped it all.
Well, it's stopped it for a while, but we'll live to fight another day.
Oh,
you know?
so
Absolutely.
we used to go down to the football club and have the meetings there. And there's a wee new girl running it now. She teaches and
Emma. Well, I knew her as Emma Cafferty. She teaches in the Brothers. Yeah. In fact, yeah.
Oh, she's lovely.
Yeah. And the plays were then put on at Clonaboghan Hall. Had that changed over the years, or was it has it remained the same since it was built? Can you remember?
Clonaboghan Hall was, there's a wee ticket somewhere, and there was a dance in it in 1926 in Clonaboghan Hall. So it's there since that.
My goodness.
And they have the Irish classes in it, and they have the youth club, and of course they had the bowling club, which we miss so much. We were talking about going back one night, but then they thought they wouldn't go, that there was a rise in the disease, and it would wait another while.
Better to err on the side of caution, I think, you know. But the drama circle, they certainly have done a lot for drama.
They have.
John McDermott and Niall Colgan.
John McDermott and Niall, aye.
There's a good community
Good
spirit
men.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to beat a good play.
John McDermott's a great man.
And there was one play, Autumn Fire, that I think we have recorded.
we recorded that.
Did you?
Was it but 07, Declan? That came out a year, was it, thereabouts?
06.
06. They are. And we recorded that here in our front room here, aye. So we'll put the whole thing out some night time when we get a chance over the years too. Mm-hmm. Noel's in it, Tommy's, your son-in-law's.
The daughter-in-law, yes.
Daughter-in-law's in it, yeah.
Well, she worked so hard for everything.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was...
But there's so much more than putting on a play than people see on the stage, as you know. Just the whole sets and designing sets.
There's a whole lot of wee things to be looked about.
Right.
Those are the most
Like you
important
never
people that
think
they
of.
never get seen,
That's
really.
right, even the people putting out the chairs. And the tea halfway through.
And the tea halfway through.
The raffle.
The raffle, aye. Bring something for the raffle.
Right.
But it's a great experience. Everybody that goes through that drama circle really, really enjoys it because it brings people together.
And
the
those
plays go.
our guy is lovely.
Does it then? You think of the great actors that there's been in Omagh, Paddy McElhinney.
Aye.
Remember Paddy?
Our children, when they were young, they were at Drumrow on Sunday. And who did they see? Only Paddy McElhinney. And they nearly died because he was in something on the television. What was he in?
Right, he used to be in...
Brother, where
Oh
aren't they?
Brother and All Gas and Gators.
They couldn't believe it.
That's right, that he was there. That's right. He was always played very cross, and he was
Aye.
full of energy, and great wee actor.
Paddy and Phyllis.
Peter McGovern, of course, and
aye.
he was a very talented man.
He was in Aikens for a while. He must have been working on it, but Jim was saying he would lift a bit of a bird and stick it on. I'm a little bird meeting.
Oh dear.
He was.
Oh dear. And then I say Eugene Floyd was in the Autumn Fire.
I haven't seen Eugene for. That's right. Sometimes I see him with a big long coat and a stick, and he always has a great "How do you do" for me any time I would meet him.
That's right. He's a very, very good actor. I've been on the stage with him myself a few times now.
He has.
Yeah.
Well, he's still with us, isn't he?
Oh, he is indeed. He is indeed. And Lord save us, all those names, the blasts from the past, as the man says.
That's right.
Did you go in to see the Omagh players at all then, when they would have put on plays in Omagh?
Oh, we did.
Of course, Paddy Laird would have produced Paddy Bogues.
And Paddy
Mary
Bogues,
Hines.
that's right.
And Kathleen Given was an
Aye.
actress with them.
Mary Keaveney.
Mary and Mary Livingstone.
Mary Livingstone, aye.
That's right. You know what? It's very, very vibrant and very active. And the town hall had a great atmosphere, hadn't it?
Yeah.
The old town hall.
Yeah.
There was just something about it. It was of its time, of course. I think it was built about 1914.
There's a lot of old photographs of Paddy McElhinney in that art centre.
Aye, that's right.
I don't know.
That's right on the way in. That's right. That's right.
When will it ever get open again? Somebody broke a step or something like that.
I
Did you
saw
see
that. I saw that. A bit of needless vandalism. Everything will get back to normal.
Oh, God, I hope
It'll
so.
change, but we'll get back to as close
I'm
as
praying
normal.
away, saying between that and that Rosemary will get her green card
Yes.
to be able to come home.
You're storming heaven.
They don't listen.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
It'll
soon.
come through in the end up, don't worry.
I hope
Don't
so.
worry. Well, Mary, looking back, a lot of changes since the day you entered the world,
Oh, aye. There weren't as many tractors about then. Now they're running tractors and trailers and slurry spreaders and mucks. That time you were out with a grape. Manual labour. And I think it was better for you. It was healthier. And we have Drumrow choir. I was telling them I was 8. They were chatting about Tattysallagh singing it, and I said I remembered it. I learned it 80 years ago in the choir, Mrs. McFarland. And we had a lovely choir, and we had a few men on it, and it was going lovely. But now we can't sing. You're not allowed to sing.
That's right. Well, you see, when you were singing in the choir, before Vatican II, were there any of the hymns in Latin, or were they in English?
Just the benediction hymns, Tantu Mergo and O Salutars. Those are the only ones that were in Latin when benediction was on.
Yeah.
But the others were all just the same. Sweetheart of Jesus and all them.
That's right, the old hymns.
The old hymns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you remember when the Mass went into English with Vatican II? Can you remember any of the older generation? Did they find that difficult?
Changing over. No, I think they liked it because you didn't know what was going on. There was a lot of the old people would have said the rosary during Mass because they didn't know what the priest was saying.
That's right.
Then you got a prayer book with the English on one side. That wasn't so bad.
And then in the old missals, there was some printed in red and then black. And then remember the paper.
Yeah.
It was thinner than tissue paper.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
You know, and when you think of those old missiles then, I remember me grannies with packed with wee kind of memoriam cards and wee prayer
That's
sheets,
right.
you know.
Prayer to this and a prayer to that.
Uh-huh.
I have a big blue one, and I can hardly, I'm saying to them, I can hardly even carry it, it's that heavy. But I never can get nothing in it that's on anywhere. I can't follow up anything in it.
You just, this thing, I remember my mother, Martin de Porres,
Aye.
was her go-to saint, and St Jude, and if you were really stuck, St Jude was communicated with. If there was something lost in the house, it was
St Jude, St Anthony.
That's right.
He got the lost stuff.
That's right. St Anthony of Padua.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You know, and I think of my mother's, the collection of her wedding day. The majority of Christmas presents or wedding presents were holy pictures.
There was a lot of holy pictures, and there was a lot of sets, a big bolster case, and 2 pillows. There was another thing that there was a big bolster on the bed, a big long pillow across the top of it, and then 2 pillows.
Yeah.
What about patchwork quilts?
Aye, God, I made them.
Sure, now you couldn't buy them for love nor money.
No. There's a wee girl has in the paper there, Anne Taggart. I don't mind how many wee pieces, the size of a 50p bit that she has sewed into this quilt. Oh, she's been at it for over a year. But I'd love to see it.
My goodness. Oh, and remember the Camberwick? Do you remember
I
that?
can't work bread spreads.
You don't see them now at all.
No. Oh, no. They wouldn't do the bride of today.
Nobody's saving in their bottom drawer now, is it, Mary? No.
But when you actually think of things like that, camphor and mothballs.
That's right. And there'd be the smell of it off your clothes. You never see a moth now.
The smell of camphor.
And vim.
Vim.
And it was good, the vim.
That's right.
I would still prefer it if I could get it.
That's right. Vim. TCP. That's another one. That's a blast from the past. Lifebuoy soap.
Lifebuoy soap, aye. That's right.
Camp coffee.
Mm-hmm. When my hair started to go grey, I used to put camp coffee in hot water and comb it through my hair. It was lovely. And it curled it as well, and I had a wee bit of a crink, had a lovely hair.
Coffee and chicory flavoured hair.
But I just let it go now.
But isn't it, when you look back, isn't it, how it suddenly changed from people using loose leaf tea then to tea bags?
Aye.
That just seemed to happen almost overnight.
That's right.
Or we didn't notice it.
You forget
happening.
about the tea.
What about country butter? Did you have it? The salted butter.
Aye, we had one of the wee glass churns. We had a cow, and we used to milk her, and you kept the cream at the top of the aye. Nice, good stuff.
Yeah.
It was a wee churn now.
Aye.
But I would have used the big staff churn in houses that I worked in.
You're right, the big shaft.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well then, when you were growing up, and I remember my mother talking about the man who would come in to kill the pig. Was there somebody in
Yes, there was. There was always a pet pig about our house. From some of the farmers, the sow would have too many pigs, and we'd get one. And my mother would have looked after this wee pig. And George McCanny from Tattysallagh, you might know Charlie and Mick, and it was their daddy. He came up to kill the pig, and he would walk up the road a bit and up the fields. And they put a cleek in his nose and they hit it on the head with a hammer, and I think they cut its throat. Maybe. You wouldn't be allowed to do that now. And then the pig was hanging up in the kitchen, and they split it down and took all the inside out and the liver. And you were dividing it around the country, the pig's liver. There was so much of a liver in it. Oh, I remember that. I would go for liver yet. And there was some part of, they called it the pig's bladder. My daddy used to blow it up and make a football out of it for us.
Oh, Lord save
With
us.
a lot of good things out of the
Right, I'm
pig.
telling you. Certainly things have changed.
Yeah. Oh.
We could be getting a phone call from the Department of Agriculture
No,
here.
I'd say so. But I remember my mother saying when the pig man came and you could talk about the squeals of the pig and the blood running round the place. You know. But look, it was.
But
was
it had
only
to be done.
It had to be done.
It had to
and
be
then
done.
that would have kept them.
Then my daddy, he was working now about brigades, and he got their pony and cart to take the pig to the market, and to, I don't know where he would have took it to Omagh.
Well, there have been a lot of changes, haven't there? You know, Omagh has changed an awful lot. I don't think the people have changed that much, but the town certainly has.
Aye, the town has changed. Somebody was going to the Roo, two or three people going for an evening out to the Roo. I couldn't even remember where the Roo was. Down at the Royal Arms, McElroy's.
Big changes.
Aye,
Big changes.
some for the better.
Yeah.
Oh, they're nearly all for the better.
Yeah.
People are better off now.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Good houses.
Better housing,
Better housing.
more
that's right.
opportunities
Although
for
there's
people.
an awful lot of people homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know whether any homeless in Omagh or not, but they're Dublin, these big cities.
But I remember in Omagh, you know, like 40 years ago, you would walk down the street at night and there would be people hanging around at Bridge Street. You know, you'd really be afraid
I had
to
to go
walk
past them.
And
aye.
that all has changed,
Mm.
you know. And as I say, I think things are
They'll
better.
not be out. And they used to have people keeping an eye on ones on the street.
that's right.
Aye, the
That's right.
Angels, Street
And,
Angels.
that's right. Then the funding kind of dried up for that.
That was a pity now, because I think that was a great organisation.
Oh, it was surely.
It was.
Great work.
Yeah.
Great
I
work.
didn't think they needed any funding. I thought it was sort of done.
Aye, voluntarily.
Job,
Well, I think they needed some sort of access to buildings and things as well, maybe to make phone calls and get people secure and things. I think they had issues over that. I don't know, Mary, to be truthful. But in the line of doctors and hospitals, do you remember the dispensaries before the health service, do you? Or?
Aye, and there was a time when you had to go down to George McConney for a line to see a doctor or to go to the hospital, was it? Or there was something.
And who was George McKenna?
George McConney was the man that killed the pig. It'd be Francie and them's father lived out in Tattysallagh.
And he also then
He
gave you a
he
line?
gave you a line to go. Was it your doctor you had to see? I can't remember.
Oh, right. Lord.
George McConney.
Aye. Oh no, the GPs are nearly a thing of the past as well. Oh no.
I remember going into Mix. He was in John Street. Do you remember? You maybe wouldn't remember him in John Street.
Very well.
Dr. McMullen.
And you walked on any time of the day and he seen you, and there was a wee girl, Pearl, she was Midlone, she married Hughie McDermott. She was the maid, and she let you in. And
Right. And of course the doctors lived by and large in that, the surgeries as well.
I
would
think
have
they
lived,
did.
You know.
My daddy used to go to old Ballydoolagh, and he was down Campsey. You know where he lived in Campsey. And he would go to Mass on Sunday, and he would go down then to the doctor, and the doctor would be sitting eating his dinner, and he would see to him and get him whatever he wanted. Gosh, those were the days.
So you remember when the health service began?
Yeah, 1946. 46, I think. And there was free orange juice for the children, the young ones, and cod liver oil. And you got free elastic stockings, what we haven't had for a while now. And it was great. And my mother, she got teeth, and then she had no teeth. She'd only one tooth for a while. And she went in to Mrs. Donnell to get fitted with these free teeth. And Annie, God rest her, was with her. And you know, she would have had a very thin mouth before that. And when she came out, Annie started to laugh at her. Mrs. Donnell's girl, "Shh, don't be laughing at your mother." She couldn't get over her with that. Like poor Spice. Oh, dear.
Well, then, with the National Health Service, then, is that when then vaccinations would have started? You know, where youngsters then wouldn't get injections in schools?
That's right. Got injections in
So before that,
schools.
there was no...
The only
system.
thing they got when they were young, they called it the pox.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a wee
Smallpox.
place on their arm.
The wee-
Aye.
Right.
And they got it when they were very young. They were took to the doctor and they got this wee vaccination to keep them from taking smallpox. Then in later years they put 3 injections, 3 into 1. Whoop, dip and tetanus, I think it was.
That's right.
So I don't know now what we'll be getting.
Yeah.
COVID-19.
So that's it. Well, hopefully, as soon as possible.
Aye,
You know?
it'd be great if they got a cure.
Yeah.
Well, looking back, Mary, what would you do again if you could?
I think I would have went on to school and had some education of some kind, either done nursing or something. And my sister, they done their best on her to stay on at school. But, she wouldn't stay. She had to get away when she was 14. And my father and mother would have got extra money for her, you know, if she had stayed on. She was smarter than me, but she wouldn't stay. But I would have stayed and went to the tech or went somewhere and got a wee bit more
Get qualifications.
educated.
Yeah.
Plenty of time yet.
Aye, I was thinking that.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. We'll go back together, you and I. The 3 of us will go back. No.
Well, 3 of us will go back now when COVID-19 stopped.
That's right.
Where would we
The
go?
COVID class of 20.
Take over where we left off, 1950s or somewhere.
Where would we go? The tech. There's plenty of colleges.
Oh,
to
I
the
imagine,
college
yeah.
there.
And what advice would you give to anyone starting out, Mary, if someone looked to you for advice? Because you've a lot of experience in life.
Well, keep on good terms with everybody and be nice to them. No matter who you meet, have a hello and a smile. I think that's very important. And I would always wave back. I think that's the main thing. Keep in good humour if you can. Don't have a long face.
Great, Mary. Thanks very much.
God bless. Thank you for
you.
having me. And I'll hang like me.
There's such a thing as that at all. Not ahead.
God bless the hills of Donegal, I've heard their praises sung in days gone by beyond recall, when I was very young. I always prayed I'd see the day before life's course is run, when I would sing the praises of the hills above Drumquin. I love the hills of Dewishby, the heather-clad Orlee, the wooded lands of Cool and the fort at Doonery, the green-clad slopes of Curlish as they face the setting sun, descending in its glory on the hills above Drumquin. The winds above Drumbarley make the hills a yellow blaze, when the heather turns to purple on my native Dressic braes. The limestone rocks of Clarabore, they glisten in the sun, when nature's at her grandest on the hills above Drumquin. I've travelled through the Highlands, it has beauty rare and grand. I've travelled through the Lowlands, it's a cold and heartless land. But I always work contented, for when each day was done, my thoughts went back at sunset to the hills above Drumquin. Drumquin, you're not a city, but you're all the world to me. Your lot I ne'er will pity, for you'll never greater be. I love you as I knew you when from school I used to run on my homeward journey through you to the hills above Drumquin. This life is sad and dreary, and the task of it is sore. My feet are growing weary, I may never wander more. So lay me down in like field when the course of life is run, and the sheltered side of Duish near the hills above Drumquin.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. I was it took me breath a wee bit after that, although.
As many's a gay night from dark till daylight I spend with people of high renown. But in all their grandeur and heaps to squander, my heart would wander for sweet Omagh town.